Which video games would a Victorian child not survive playing? That's what we're here to find out. I searched high and low to find 10 of the trippiest, most overstimulating games I could possibly find to see what stands the best chance at short-circuiting their brains. Since I didn't have a Victorian era child available the week that I worked on this video, I went with the next closest thing as a guinea pig. Me, a millennial who is always tired and has a lot going on right now. Also, hi, my name is freaking Nick, and yes, I am aware that this meme is about 5 years old at this point. The idea of something being capable of taking out a Victorian child stems from the idea that if you show a modern thing to a child from 200 years ago, it would overwhelm their senses and result in their trauma or death. In the Victorian era, children were mainly in schools or clocking in for their shift at the factory, all the while they were trying not to catch pneumonia. And while the average Victorian child lived a very hard and short life, and about 20% of them never even made it to their 5th birthday, we kind of have it in our head that a flamin' hot Cheeto is what would end up doing the job. It is worth noting that back then, they obviously didn't have magical light up rectangles a few inches from their face at all times, so they are probably less mentally equipped to experience an overload of stimuli. Meanwhile, in the big 2025, we're at the point where the lack of stimuli carries a certain wrongness to it. I mean, look at you. You can't even eat your lunch without hearing me yap. Before we get into the weird trippy stuff like, I think we should knock out a couple of easy ones first. From around the same time period of the Victorian era, there stems an urban legend that a theater full of adults were traumatized by a French short film featuring a train arriving at a station. And while that is widely discredited, I don't know, because it's pretty easy to trick people into thinking that what's on their screen is real, even in this century. Like, we have this kid, or this old lady, or this person watching YouTube right now. Because of this, the first thing I'm proposing for the list of games that could kill a Victorian child is pretty much any VR game. For the sake of specificity, we will go with Gorilla Tag. If we can still get tricked by that baseball video, then you can bet your sweet bippy that you could strap a MetaQuest 3 onto one of those children, and at the first sight of an orange gorilla with a prepubescent voice coming out of it, their fight or flight will activate and their little legs will scurry them off into an oncoming horse buggy or something. Barring that, there are several VR titles that have really trippy visuals that I think would be good candidates to overwhelm the senses. Tetris Effect would be a really good one because you have all these particle effects that just kind of envelop you and really immerse you into the world, and if you're not focused on the game itself, it can be pretty overwhelming. The next most reliable method, I think, would be to scare a Victorian child to death. To accomplish this, we need to think logically. You might think, oh, the scariest game ever is Silent Hill 2 or Alan Wake 2 or Outlast 2. While those can be scary in their own right, they do so more in an atmospheric kind of way, and I think that requires a bit of context that those children just frankly don't have. I think, now bear with me, if our task is to scare a child to death, Five Nights at Freddy's would probably be the best bet. Think about it. It deals with employment that is relatable to them. Child employment numbers were through the roof at that time. And while the visuals are a bit busted, I think it looks realistic enough to trick a child, and most importantly, it has loud and sudden jump scares that could probably give someone a heart attack if they were not expecting it. I'm trying to think of other horror games that would be just as effective at like these sudden scares, but pretty much everything I can think of would be less effective at literally scaring someone to death than a good old-fashioned... Now I want to change gears and talk about games that I think have a shot at shutting down a Victorian child's brain out of pure overstimulation or confusion. I think under the right circumstances, an OK Go music video could take a year or two off of their lifespan, so there are probably games that can do this too. The game that you are currently watching is called Thumper. It's a rhythm game with trippy visuals and loud music that bears the time signature of whatever level you are on. So if you're in the world 7-5, then it's 7 beats per measure with 5th notes being the standard beat. I think that kind of abstract music concept is enough to break their brain, but let's get into it a little bit further. A lot of rhythm games, including Thumper, do this thing where they just put overwhelmingly trippy visuals on the outsides of the screen, and on the inside of the screen is the track that you're supposed to be paying attention to, and that's where all of the things that you're supposed to do are located. So by doing this, it kind of forces you to lock in on what's important while still keeping your brain a little entertained with what's going on in the peripherals. So while we in our 21st century glory are conditioned to not pay attention to the impossible geometry going on and to just kind of shift that into the back of our mind, you know who's not conditioned to do that? Victorian era children. That's who. So between the loud and overbearing music with confusing time signatures and the shapes behaving in ways that shapes are typically not supposed to, I think we might have an aneurysm inducer on our hands. While the topic of impossible geometry is fresh on our minds, Manifold Garden is my next pick, and probably the most likely to send one of these children into an existential crisis. Its entire concept is based on the M.C. Escher painting called Relativity. By walking up to a wall, you are able to rotate the entire universe's gravity to make the wall that you're walking against the new floor. Also, through the use of impossible geometry and physics, this game is made to simulate infinity. It creates a staggering illusion of scale that just kind of blew me away the first time I saw it. Plus, I think just trying to grasp the concept of infinity might be an effective way to overclock a Victorian child's brain. When's the last time you sat down and tried to wrap your head around the concept of the infinite? Have you ever just taken a moment and tried to comprehend what it would actually mean to live forever and exist into infinity? You get to a point where your brain kind of just short circuits a bit. It's a pretty harrowing thought experiment. Another thing that Manifold Garden does that I think would literally blow a Victorian child's mind is they do that thing where if you go into a room, the interior is a lot bigger than what you would expect based on the exterior. Also, there are staircases that will go up and you'll keep going up those staircases and you'll wind up lower than where you started. They're really nice touches that add to the whole "this is not the universe that you're used to" aspect of this game. Superliminal is a game that, by design, messes with your brain through the use of perspective. Basically, if you are holding an item and drop it, instead of being dropped at arm's length like you would expect, it is dropped at the furthest point possible from you. So if you drop something while up against a wall or looking at the ground, it makes it much smaller than when you first picked it up, and if you look far away, it gets bigger each time you drop it. Since children are still trying to grasp the concept of why is this thing bigger when it's closer, this would do a really good job at shattering their worldview. Much like Superliminal, Viewfinder is trippy in the sense that it messes with your perspective. You hold a photo up, you push a button, and that photo gets superimposed on the universe in front of you. And just like that, you can just shift reality.
Did you just shift reality?
Yeah, that's what I said, Jesse. The more I think about this, the more I feel that if the mind of a Victorian child was allegedly not meant to comprehend a train on film being fake, then it's not meant to comprehend any of this shit. And perhaps the best way of finding a way to shock one to death would be to expose them to a world in which the laws of physics don't behave the way that they're supposed to. This last group of games that I think could potentially kill a Victorian child are games that are so overstimulating that you can feel your brain cells cook as you play the game. Like I said exactly 6 minutes and 54 seconds ago, I feel like Victorian era children are less mentally equipped to deal with an overload of stimuli than we are. That being said, if you are prone to having epileptic seizures, I'm going to play this tone whenever it's going to be really flashy, and then I'll play the same tone again when it's okay to open your eyes. Or if you'd rather skip the whole sections in general, I'm going to put a timestamp saying skip to this part if you want to avoid the really flashy stuff. Post Void is an interesting one. It's a game in an emerging genre called the Zoomer Shooter, which is basically a riff on boomer shooters like Doom and Wolfenstein, but it's built from the ground up with kids on Adderall in mind as the target audience. You play as a guy whose headache was so bad that he decapitated himself, and so now he runs around with his head in his hand while it leaks white fluids, and he is trying to reach the void so he can pour the remaining fluid in his head into it. I think that synopsis alone would put a 19th century child into a coma. The only thing louder than Post Void's soundtrack is its art direction. Each time you die, it's like a grenade went off in the spray paint aisle. And I think what really adds to the stress and the urgency of all of this is that the game pushes you onward by forcing you to get a kill every few seconds, or else the fluid in your own severed head is going to run out and then you will die. So you've got loud music, a sense of urgency, flashing lights out the wazoo, and an art style that looks like you deep fried a 13-year-old boy's edgy art project, fed it to a dog, then deep fried the dog's shit and called it a day. That being said, I liked this game. Despite the headache-inducing everything about it, it's a really fun, cheap, fast-paced shooter. Hyper Demon was the next game that I tried, and I don't know what the hell is going on here. This was my first experience in the game. I played several more times and came out with even more questions than answers. I can only describe the experience as what I imagine would happen if you died while on acid and when you showed up in hell, you were still tripping on that same acid. At one point, I grabbed what I thought was a power-up and suddenly my world was made up of non-Euclidean geometry. It happens again a few minutes later. I don't know what triggered that. I have never been more profoundly confused by a video game than by Hyperdemon. I don't know which enemies are damageable and which ones aren't. I don't know how to make my score go up faster than it goes down, and I don't know where the edge of the map is because I keep falling off. I decided that I'd view competent players play this game, and somehow that lessened my understanding of what this game is and how it works. What the heck is this guy doing? Why is his screen doing that? How do I do that? How do I get that high up? I don't know. I am convinced that Hyperdemon could take out a Victorian Child because to me, it felt like I was a caveman that you just put inside the Las Vegas sphere. While Mech Punk may not be as abstract as Hyperdemon or as frenetic as Post Void, it makes up for it by being the most disgusting looking piece of shit I have ever laid my eyes on. It starts out with a bunch of AI generated images giving you exposition on the story, and then you get assaulted by a flurry of messages like people poop on every planet and don't be afraid of getting nuked. Then you, named Little Punk, are spawned on your home planet inside your mech suit and are tasked with taking out the president of the solar system. I cannot stress how visually and audibly loud and obnoxious this game is. Menus, dialogue, and mission prompts are overlapped on top of each other as they show up, and they're just thrown in your face out of nowhere, while characters talk with the most grating sounds you could ever imagine. And the minimap is just a bunch of circles showing you the general direction of literally everything in the game, with the closer objects being bigger on your minimap. It also makes this sound the entire time that you have your minimap open. This game is just so busy. Here's what high-level combat looks like. And here's what hyperspeed travel looks like. At one point, I got in a fight while in hyperspeed. I about cried. I don't know who this game is for. I don't know what the appeal is. All I know is that after playing this game for 30 minutes, I logged off of my computer for the rest of the day because it damn near killed me. Even watching this footage back to edit it gave me a migraine. So please, if you take anything out of this video, do not buy Mech Punk. I know it's only $1, but that dollar would be better used if you were to swallow it and see if it comes out the other end still in a spendable state. So there you have it. Games that I think could plausibly kill or most likely just really confuse a Victorian Child. With this information, you can, I don't know, test your limits, I guess. This clearly was not meant to be a serious video, but more of just like a silly thought experiment. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about games that could accomplish this same task. But with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you very much for the privilege of your time. I was trying to get this up on the anniversary of my channel, but this is probably going to be a couple of days late because I wanted to just tweak it a little bit. But it's been a really fun year having a chance to flex my creativity muscles and try something new because I made entirely Dead by Daylight content before this. I hope this video did a decent enough job to convince you to maybe consider giving this video a like and subscribing, or at least clicking on my video the next time I pop up in front of your face on your recommended. Whether or not you do those things, I appreciate you and I hope you have a good rest of your life. You take care of yourself.
I'm like